Okay, imagine you want to build a global empire. You want a best selling app, a huge book deal, millions of fans who worship you. Here's the plan: tell everyone you're dying of brain cancer when you're not. This isn't some crazy movie script. This actually really happened. And this was the pitch from an Australian influencer named Belle Gibson. It was simple, it was powerful, and it was exactly what people wanted to hear. She told hundreds of thousands of followers that she was curing her own terminal cancer with, get this, nothing but a healthy diet. And oh my God, did people want to believe her? Her app, The Whole Pantry, absolutely exploded. Then came a cookbook with a major publisher, Penguin. She was on the cover of magazines. She was flown out to Silicon Valley. She became the face of this new, authentic wellness movement. A movement that was, built entirely on a fantasy. And we're not just talking about some random followers here. The biggest, most powerful corporations on the planet co-signed this. Apple was so blown away, they literally made her app one of the very few to be pre-installed on the brand new Apple Watch. Think about that. She wasn't just some influencer, she was a global phenomenon with the Apple stamp of approval. But as a few journalists and even some of her own friends started poking around, they started to notice some cracks in her perfect, tragic story. It was all a lie. All of it. The diagnosis? Fake. The miraculous recovery? Never happened. The money she donated to charity? Yeah, that was fake too. It was a complete, top-to-bottom, 100% fabrication. What you are about to see is one of the most insane, audacious, and frankly, unbelievable scams of the entire social media age. My name's your host, and today we're breaking down how she pulled it off. So if you love stories about epic scams and unbelievable cons, do yourself a solid and absolutely demolish that subscribe button, because you are not going to want to miss what happens next. Okay, so let's get into it. How in the world did Belle Gibson convince so many people of such a massive lie? Well, it all starts with the foundation of any great con, a really, really tragic backstory. She basically cooked up the perfect sob story, a childhood just stolen by having to take care of her sick mom and autistic brother. She said she had to leave home at 12. On top of that, she claimed she had all these heart surgeries and even died on the operating table. This wasn't just a story about surviving cancer. It was about surviving a life of pure tragedy, making her wellness journey seem, heroic. But here's the thing. When journalists started actually looking into this, the first giant red flag popped up. And it came from her own mother, who basically said, yeah, that's a whole lot of rubbish. She never cared for me, my son isn't autistic, and she's never done a day of housework in her life. This wasn't just a little white lie. She invented an entire history just to manipulate people. So, armed with this totally fake but super compelling backstory, and riding the wave of this brand new thing called Instagram, Belle Gibson created an absolute money printing machine. And her rise was just ridiculously fast. I mean, look at this timeline. In less than a year and a half, she goes from a simple Instagram account to being praised by Apple and signing a book deal with one of the biggest publishers in the world. She was the perfect influencer at the perfect time, selling hope one gluten-free recipe at a time. Now, Belle wasn't just making this stuff up in a vacuum. Her story was happening right alongside another wellness blogger, one whose fight was tragically, devastatingly real. And this, right here, is where the story goes from a shocking scam to a flat-out tragedy. The difference here is just horrifying. While Belle Gibson was allegedly faking seizures at her own son's birthday party to get sympathy, a real wellness blogger named Jessica Anscoff was in a desperate fight for her life. Jessica truly believed in alternative treatments, like something called Gerson therapy, after conventional medicine just wasn't working for her. And in 2015, right as Belle's web of lies was starting to unravel, Jessica Anscoff tragically died from her cancer. So, how does a lie this big, this all-encompassing, finally come crashing down? Well, it didn't start with the fake cancer. Nope. It started with a much, much simpler question. Where's the money? See, Belle's whole empire was built on this image of being a healer, a generous soul. But when two journalists, Bo Donnelly and Nick Toscano, started making some phone calls to the charities she swore she was supporting, they found out that generosity was a complete sham. Out of the $300,000 she promised, the charities had seen next to nothing. And once that charity fraud came out, the entire house of cards just collapsed. Her publishers dropped her like a hot rock, Apple yanked the app, and finally, Belle was cornered. She had no choice but to admit the truth to the entire world. She never, ever had cancer. This whole insane saga just begs a massive question, right? Is there any truth to the so-called alternative cures that people like Jessica Ainscough genuinely believed in and that Belle Gibson got rich off of? It's time to look at the actual science, or lack thereof. Okay, so one of the main treatments that was pushed in this community was something called Gerson therapy. It's this super extreme regimen. We're talking a strict plant-based diet, tons of supplements, and yes, you are reading that correctly, multiple coffee enemas every single day. The idea is that this detoxifies your body and kills cancer. And let's be crystal clear on this. The scientific and medical communities are completely united here. As Dr. Eleonora Toplinsky puts it, yeah, a healthy diet is awesome and can help lower your cancer risk, but there is absolutely no food or diet on this planet that can actually cure cancer. The claims just aren't backed up by any real evidence. But hey, before we think that this kind of grift is only in the wellness world, it's worth remembering that profiting from sickness can happen anywhere. I mean, look at Dr. Farid Fata. This was a licensed oncologist who purposely misdiagnosed real patients and gave them chemo they didn't need, all to bill for $225 million. It's a terrifying reminder that fraud like this exists on all sides. All right, so what happens when your multi-million-dollar lie gets exposed to the entire world? Do you go to prison? Do you have to pay back all the money? Well, in the case of Belle Gibson, the story just gets even weirder. She actually wasn't charged criminally, which is wild, but she was taken to civil court, where they found she'd engaged in misleading and deceptive conduct, and the court slammed her with a fine of $410,000. So how much of that fine has she paid to this day? That would be zero. Zilch. Not a single cent. And with interest, that debt has now ballooned to over $500,000, and it is still completely unpaid. And just when you thought it couldn't get any more bizarre, we get maybe the strangest twist in this whole story. In an attempt to just start over, I guess, Gibson claimed that she'd been adopted by the local Ethiopian community in Melbourne, and even gave herself a new name. What did the community say? They basically came out and said, we have absolutely no idea who this woman is. You can't make this stuff up. The story of Belle Gibson is just a masterclass in deception, but it is so much more than just a shocking headline. It leaves us with a really unsettling question for the world we live in now. In an age where literally anyone with a smartphone can become a health guru, how do you tell the difference between what's real and what's fake? And at the end of the day, who do you choose to trust?